Brawl Boxes might be coming back to Brawl Stars. Brawl Stars recently released their second Time to Explain podcast, and I was lucky enough to be invited on as a guest. Now, the podcast was 2.5 hours long, and if you have time to listen to it, I highly recommend doing so because a lot of interesting things were said on the podcast that I'm not going to cover in this video. But this video you're watching right now is a quick recap of some of the most important things that were talked about, like Brawl Boxes potentially coming back to the game, maybe even an ultimate ability coming to every brawler in the game. I'll cover everything you need to know, but first, I've got more to cover, but I wanted to give a big thank you to Samsung for sponsoring this video. The Samsung S23 Ultra has some of the best features anyone could possibly want on a phone. And honestly, it makes it the perfect companion, not just for a great mobile device, but also for gaming on the go. You're gonna wanna click the link below to learn more. As a mobile gamer, the thing that I love most about the phone is that it uses the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 mobile platform, which is custom made to boost performance on the phone's CPU and GPU. I also like that it has adaptive brightness, so right now in my well-lit room, it's actually really bright, but if it's dark, then it decreases the brightness. It's really awesome. It also comes with a built-in S Pen that you can just pull out like this. This is fantastic, not just for like taking pictures. It's got a button on there and you can just press and it'll take a picture for you, but you can also grab screenshots, draw on it. I would show off some of my masterpieces that I've drawn, but you guys don't want to see them. Just because the S Pen's great doesn't make me a great artist. Some other really great things about the phone is that you can easily use it all day long and never really have to worry about charging it, thanks to its 5,000 milliamp hour battery and a cooling system which has been improved, so you don't have to worry about it overheating either. Which, if you like to game on your phone as much as I do, that's actually a great perk. But whether you're a mobile gamer or not, the Samsung S23 Ultra has everything that you would want in a phone, including 2 or 3 or 4, oh, it's 5 awesome cameras on here. So click that link below to learn more, or check out the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4, which is actually my daily driver. I really love this phone. Plus, the Samsung case actually allows me to like use it as basically a tablet. I love this, just like I love my Samsung watch. Clearly, I really like Samsung products, so a huge thank you to Samsung for sponsoring this video. Now, in the podcast, they let me pick one of 5 sneak peeks that could be revealed during the podcast. I can't say what all of them were, but one of them was a new gacha coming to the game. If you're not aware of what gacha is, it's basically a game mechanic where characters or resources or whatever that you get from the game actually are unlocked in loot boxes. Brawl Stars used to be a gacha game when Brawl Boxes were in the game, even though like it wasn't like a super strong or bad gacha game. It was actually really a great gacha game, honestly. But they told us that there's going to be a new gacha introduced into the game, and I had to know more details. To be honest, they actually didn't give us very many details, and I'll explain what this could possibly mean. But the biggest piece of feedback the players gave when Brawl Boxes were removed from the game was that they missed the excitement of Brawl Boxes and what they brought into the game. When they removed them, that excitement was gone. Now, even though I'm very glad that they did remove Brawl Boxes from the game, this is a very legitimate piece of feedback, and Danny said that in the next update, they would bring something into the game that would address that concern. Frank mentioned specifically like when you were opening up a box and you saw that you were going to be getting a new brawler from that box, even before you unlocked the brawler, you knew it because the number was flashing 6 or whatever, and that was really exciting. They want to bring that exciting element back to the game without making it too random or unfair. So to be clear, they are not planning on just removing the current system with the Star Road and then bringing boxes back into the game. They were very clear about that. And a specific reason why they're not is because boxes meant that some players would get all of their legendaries, all of their brawlers unlocked very quickly, whereas other players would take a long time, and sometimes players would have to wait years for their first legendary, which was just not a fun experience. Frank specifically mentioned that they want to bring that exciting element back into the game without thinking of monetization and without literally bringing boxes back to the game. And I really like that he mentioned that they don't want to like monetize this. I have so many questions that aren't exactly answered. We're gonna have to wait until the future to figure out what is actually going to be happening. But they also mentioned specifically that they want to have an exciting moment every day that could either be really small or something really big and exciting. They're not going to completely change the Star Road system or anything like that, but something like boxes is coming in Brawl Stars in the next update. And we don't know what it looks like. It could be a daily spin on a wheel. It could be a scratch card. Maybe it's something where like if you log in every single day, you get specific rewards. It could actually just be a straight up Brawl box that you unlock with a quest, but we don't actually know any specific details other than some element of randomness and progression will be coming to the game. I really have so many questions. Will this be a straight up buff to progression? Will they take resources from other parts of progression or from to add this into the system? We're gonna have to see what comes to the future. So you guys know the deal. Subscribe, because you know, I talk about news like this all the time on my channel. Now, one of the community questions was whether or not they would consider putting some sort of an ultimate ability into the game. So like on top of supers and gadgets and star powers. And I was actually really surprised at how Danny responded to this. He was so casual and he was like, we do want to add a big change to gameplay in the game similar to what happened with gadgets and star powers when they were first added into the game. And if you guys are not long-term players, you don't know how that was, it was huge. One of the biggest updates in my memory is when gadgets were first released, because every single brawler now had a new ability, and that was awesome. And I think they tried to get that with gears, and honestly, they are aware that that was a disappointing experience, and they want to release something that is exciting, that will change gameplay specifically. He didn't say hardly anything else beyond that, but it is really exciting. We don't know when or exactly how, but I think we can safely expect more abilities for each brawlers eventually, which I'm kind of curious to know what your guys' thoughts are, because I really want that, but I know that some people really enjoy the simpleness of each character's ability. And like, I don't know, would they add another button? Would they add another joystick? Would it be, there's so many questions we don't know. Now, one of the things we talked a lot about was bling and how happy they are with it, especially after this massive update that they had, okay? Interestingly enough, they talked about how the star point system had a lot of issues. It required the team to create content for star points every single season for a free resource, which meant that the game didn't profit on those skins, and only a small percentage of players actually had access to tons of star points to be able to buy all of those skins. Another issue with the previous system was that the cost for skins were just all over the place, ranging from just 500 star points to 50,000, which didn't make a whole lot of sense anymore. And the seasonal Power League skins were a pretty good solution, but players were still pretty limited in which skins they could actually unlock for free. And in the end, they really didn't love the whole star point system and wanted to give players more choice in which they could unlock cosmetics, and I think that we can all agree that we really like it. But one thing they talked about was that this was actually a massive risk, because they don't want to make absolutely everything available to everyone and then lose revenue, which is important, because if they don't actually make enough money for the game, then they can't afford to keep developing the game, and it limits what they can do for like big events. And that's actually a main reason why they made it so that you cannot buy 199 gem and 299 gem skins without or with bling. They have to be purchased with gems. And that's also why they added the 2-week period after skins are released that they can only be purchased with gems. Honestly, they're still kind of on the edge when it comes to bling and whether or not it makes sense from a financial perspective, but they are really happy with how the community has responded to bling. Even though the Power League skin does cost 5,000 bling, which is basically 2 times the 25,000 star point skins before the update, bling is actually a balance around players unlocking 33% more skins per year for free than the previous star point system was. Plus, players are obviously getting more choice, which is actually really awesome. And we did specifically talk about the Power League skin and it being just way too much requirement. I mean, not only do you have to do like 60 wins for Power League, but you also have to spend 5,000 bling, which is just so much. I did specifically suggest them adding a discount to Power League skins if you get all of the wins, and the truth is that they completely rebalance bling and star points so that most players should be getting 2 additional skins per year than before. But if they cut the Power League skin cost in half, like I was suggesting, that would increase the number of free skins by 6. So discounting it honestly just really is not on the table right now. With that being said though, they're still monitoring bling levels across a variety of accounts, and they're willing to adjust things if they feel like bling just is not accomplishing what they want it to. They also talked a lot about the Trophy League reset, and they immediately realized that 2 weeks for that reset was just too short and it wasn't rewarding enough. It was kind of one of those moments where everyone on the team was pretty much feeling the same and it wasn't good, and after talking with the community about it, they made some pretty fast changes to 1 month, and they recognized that there are some hardcore players that are not 100% happy with the trophy reset, and maybe even not hardcore players, but some people might not necessarily be super happy with things right now. But for right now, they're mostly happy with how it works for the majority of players who are a little bit more casual. They also did specifically say they're not 100% happy with how quests are working, Power League is working, trophies are working, even Club League isn't really working exactly how they want it to right now. And they specifically mentioned they don't like how isolated all the current systems are and how kind of complex all of progression is with all these different systems working differently. And Danny even mentioned the possibility of completely reworking all of these individual systems of quests, Power League, Trophy League, Club League, all of it into just one system that flows better and is simpler for existing and new players. Now, they are not immediately working on this right now because they have other things they want to prioritize right now, and a complete rework is just like theoretical at this point. But they are not 100% happy with everything, and they'd rather make some small, easy to develop changes to the current systems so that they can focus on new content and then come back to this later when it's something that they're ready to address. And honestly, I just really loved hearing their opinion on all of this because I've voiced a lot of concerns about the game and a lot of the systems that are in the game, and it's really good to know that they honestly just share the same concerns. I also really like to hear that they are working on new exciting content before they take a look at these current systems, because while a revamp and improved trophy system does sound really good, it takes several months to make, which is several months that the team can't work on new content. And even if the old content isn't perfect, I think think most people will agree that new content is always more exciting than reworking old content. There are obviously some exceptions when things like, Gears are released and people really don't like Gears, but now they're fine, but you get the idea. New content is usually better. And this is actually the same reason why they have not been able to rework a lot of the unused gadgets and star powers and different things when it comes to balance. They want to do a lot of changes, but the same developers who are required to make those changes happen are the same developers who have to develop new brawlers. And in order for the game to continue to do well, they have to release new brawlers. That's just how the game works. And so there's a lot of changes they want to do. They just need more time. In fact, this actually brings up a really important part of the podcast, which is the fact that the team shares a lot of the same concerns that we have. And they want to make a lot of those changes, but they only have so much time to make those changes. It's not an issue of coming up with the right ideas. It's about prioritizing which ideas to really focus on putting into the game. I know that might sound like common sense as I'm talking about it right now, but I think as players, we often kind of just forget that. We think that they just chose not to add more content into the game, and that's not really the reality of it. And honestly, that's why I really like the Time to Explain podcast. It's really fun to listen to. And I actually asked them if they are the biggest team at Supercell, because at one point they were the largest team at Supercell. And being the largest team at Supercell would typically mean that they have more time, right? And we talked about that a little bit and how it doesn't always mean more time, but yes, it does lead to having some more time. And Frank actually let us know that the biggest team actually is an unannounced game, which that has me super hyped. I love Supercell games and I would love to try a new one, especially if it has the largest team. That's really exciting. Frank did specifically say, hey, this isn't a leak or anything. It's just Supercell's always working on new games, so it's not that much of a surprise. One thing that was kind of a surprise to me though is that the team already has content planned for the rest of this year. Now, to be clear, not everything is developed, but everything that needs to be worked on is currently being worked on to at least some extent for the rest of this year, and they have plans of what kind of content they do want to release. This has actually been a really huge improvement for the team morale, because way back in the past, they were pretty much working one update at a time, and that actually led to some really stressful moments for the team, and they've said that specifically now is the highest the team's morale has been. And I'm not sure about how you guys feel, but I really like to hear the team's morale is high, and I really think that it honestly shows in the content that we're getting too, right? They've gone from working one update at a time to having time to really think through every single change that they add, and that has even led to them being able to avoid some issues that couldn't have been avoided without time. One thing we specifically mentioned was when they completely removed boxes and they added the Star Road into the progression, they actually brought some feedback to myself and a small handful of other people and showed us kind of what they had been working on. And we actually gave them a lot of feedback that one specific thing that they were working on during that time would probably not go very well, so they ended up deciding to scrap it. That one specific thing was that they were thinking about limiting how many times you could actually swap your brawler choice when you're actually unlocking a new brawler. So if you chose Crow, then you could only unlock Crow and you had to wait forever to get Spike, not change your mind as you go. And so looking at it now, that seems pretty obvious, but the team actually was toying around with some different things that actually did make sense on paper, but we ended up giving the feedback that they could change, and they were able to make that change. And an example of a time when they weren't able to make some of those changes was actually when they released Gears. Okay, when Gears were first released, they did not have the time to really look at all of the things from every single aspect, and the team wasn't 100% in agreement in all the different aspects that came with Gears. And that actually led to a lot of players being very unhappy with the update. And it took them a lot of time to recover from that, and things are a lot better now. And that's actually why they did not release the new PvE game mode yet. They had been developing it and they tested it, and they realized that it would not reach not just their own expectations, but our expectations. And they want to do it right the first time so that it gets the love that it deserves. They did specifically say they are planning on working on a new PvE game mode. And they did mention that it, at least at one point, was inspired by roguelikes and roguelite games, which was really awesome and exciting news to me. But they're still taking time to work on it so that we can actually get a good game mode that's actually fun and exciting to play over a long period of time. We have no idea when that's going to happen, but it's clear that it's at least on their list of things to do eventually. It might not even happen this year. Now, I did specifically ask them what they were willing to share about the future of Brawl Stars and what is coming, because I think we can all agree that we really liked that Brawl Talk when they just kind of laid things out for us and said what they were planning on releasing. And Frank did say that they do have plans for the summer Brawl Talk to actually do something exactly like that, where they will give us some insight on what they're working on for the next few months. So make sure you guys get ready for that. I don't think it's going to be before summer. My guess is it's going to be after summer, so keep that in mind. Now, one thing that Frank did specifically say though is that they do not currently have any plans for them to add Power 12 into the game. Thank goodness, because it's been a year and a half since they added Power 11 into the game, and I still feel like the game's kind of, well, it's pretty recovered from it, but it was kind of rough for a while. And honestly, I liked hearing him say that they do not want to add Power 12 into the game. It's not in the cards at the moment. At the same time that Danny mentioned that they do plan on adding some sort of change into the gameplay. Maybe that's new abilities for each brawler, maybe it's not. My thought process was if they did add like ultimate abilities into the game, it would come with Power 12, and it sounds like that's not the intention. Granted, I'm trying to look between the lines of what Danny and all the developers said, and I'm kind of like assuming things. We don't know for sure. Now, they were asked why not much has come from the report system. The main thing is they're still gathering data, and they really want to make sure that they don't ban somebody who does not actually deserve to get a ban. And so like new players that like they're looking at all sorts of different things like that. Just because you're bad doesn't mean that you should get banned every single time, right? They were asked if there would be a rework coming to the training area anytime soon. It's a list of the things that they might work on, but they're prioritizing other stuff instead, which I think is completely fair. Now, they did discuss how they could possibly stop teaming in Showdown. This is something that they haven't given up on the idea of improving. Teaming in Showdown, I'm really happy to, because honestly, right in the podcast, I said I've kind of given up hope, and they said not to lose hope because they do have other ideas, and some things might be more extreme than what they've done in the past, but they didn't say that they'll do anything immediately. I still like to hear that they're working on ideas to eliminating teaming in Showdown because it's not great. Another question that got brought up is whether or not they are improving Mapmaker. They have some really cool ideas on what they want to add to it, not just like cool ideas, but like Frank specifically said, very cool ideas, right? The issue is the time that it takes to develop Mapmaker, and that is actually a big gamble for the team because Mapmaker or a mode maker would require several months of game development time, like probably 4 to 5, maybe even 6 updates worth. That's a full year, and pretty much all the content we would get if they focus on developing just mode maker for that whole year would just be new brawlers, and that's a lot of development time for something that might not be worth it. It is on their list, but we likely won't see any massive changes added to Mapmaker very soon. I could be completely wrong though. Now, one question that was asked was one thing that they would like to bring into Brawl Stars from other games. Adrian mentioned 2-player power league, so it's just a 2v2. I think that's actually a pretty cool idea. I like that idea. Danny said that he would like to improve the solo queue experience, specifically to look for a team feature where you have specific types of brawlers, like maybe you want to play with an assassin or a healer, or maybe just straight up damage brawlers and stuff like that. These are obviously not concrete ideas, but just stuff they would like to do. I did respond by saying that I would love to see some super difficult PvE bosses, and Danny actually said that the PvE mode that they wanted to work on probably would have something like that, at least similar to like a roguelike or a roguelite, and that was music to my ears because I love the game genre, and if they could make a really fun Brawl Stars roguelite, that would be super fun to play. It really would be very exciting. Now, another thing they really stressed during this podcast was that they do love it when players share feedback on the game. They want us to share our feedback. They are actively seeking it out, and they specifically talked about how they do watch my 100% honest reviews and that they actually wish that other creators would do something similar. That's how much they really care about listening to the community, whether people like the update or not. The one ask that they did say was, if you do share some feedback, don't just say boring update or lazy developers, but explain why it made you feel a specific way and what you dislike about it, so the developers could actually take that feedback, because otherwise if you just say boring, they're just going to ignore you, right? That's not going to be helpful at all. They need specific concrete pieces of feedback so they actually understand how the players feel. Now, they were asked if they were considering doing more with kudos, and they want to. They're not 100% happy with kudos. They like it generally, but it's something that they want to improve eventually, and it's just a matter of time and prioritizing whether or not that's the focus they really need to focus on. They also talked about a 5v5 game mode. It's an interesting concept, and they're not against doing it, but that would require a lot more work than we might think, and they're not convinced that it would actually be worth the effort. And I think you guys would really enjoy listening to the podcast when you do have 2.5 hours. You can even just play it on the background. You don't have to specifically be watching it the whole time. We did talk about some additional things, but I've wanted to specifically take this video to really focus on what we could kind of expect in the future of Brawl Stars. If you enjoyed it, let me know in the comment section below, and make sure you guys subscribe so you do not miss out on any other content. In the meantime, there's more videos right here. Check them out. For now, this is KairosTime ticking by. We will see you in Brawl Stars.